Right now, most of your problems are not happening to you. They are happening inside you. And the scary part, you are helping them grow every single day. Take a breath. This is not motivation. This is not comfort. This is truth. Stoicism is not about pretending life is easy. It is about becoming unbreakable when life is hard. If you stay with me, these 12 lessons will change how you think, how you react, and how you live. Most of the stress people carry every day comes from trying to control things that were never theirs to control. You wake up thinking about what others might say, how someone might react, what the future could bring, or how the past should have gone differently. This constant mental struggle drains energy and creates anxiety. The truth is simple but difficult to accept. There are limits to your power, and peace begins when you respect those limits. You can control your actions. You can control your effort. You can control your decisions and the meaning you give to events. Everything else exists outside your authority. Other people's opinions, emotions, choices, and reactions belong to them. The weather, the economy, accidents, timing, and luck are not yours to command. When you confuse what is yours with what is not, you create frustration. When you separate them clearly, your mind becomes steady. Imagine holding water in your hands. The tighter you squeeze, the faster it escapes. Control works the same way. The harder you try to force outcomes, the more tension you create. Letting go does not mean giving up. It means choosing where your energy goes. You stop wasting strength on battles you cannot win and invest it where it matters. When something goes wrong, the mind immediately asks, "Why did this happen to me?" A better question is, what part of this is mine to handle? You cannot control that someone lied, but you can control how you respond. You cannot control that a plan failed, but you can control what you learn from it. You cannot control rejection, but you can control whether it breaks you or builds you. This way of thinking removes unnecessary suffering. Many people suffer twice, once from the event itself, and again from resisting it. They replay it, argue with reality, and wish it were different. Reality does not listen. It continues forward. The only choice is whether you move with it or exhaust yourself fighting it. Releasing what you cannot control requires humility. It means accepting that you are not the center of the universe. Events are not personal attacks. Life is not designed to reward or punish you. It simply unfolds. When you stop taking everything personally, emotional weight lifts, calm replaces chaos. This mindset also strengthens responsibility. When you stop blaming external forces for everything, you reclaim power over your inner world. You no longer say, "They made me angry." You say, "I allowed anger to take over." That shift is uncomfortable, but it is freeing. Responsibility is not a burden, it is control in its purest form. In daily life, this principle sharpens focus. Instead of worrying about results, you focus on effort. Instead of fearing judgment, you focus on character. Instead of stressing about timing, you focus on preparation. This creates consistency, and consistency builds confidence. There will always be uncertainty. Trying to eliminate it only increases fear. Learning to coexist with it builds resilience. When you accept that some outcomes are unknown, you stop needing guarantees to act. You move forward anyway, grounded in what you can control. Even in difficult moments, this practice brings clarity. When emotions rise, pause and separate facts from assumptions. Ask yourself what action is within your reach right now. Often it is something small, staying silent, taking one step, breathing deeply, choosing patience. Small acts of control accumulate into inner strength. Over time, this way of living changes how you experience life. Challenges become tests instead of threats. Obstacles become training instead of punishment. You stop feeling like a victim of circumstances and start feeling like a steward of your own mind. This discipline does not remove hardship, but it removes helplessness. You stop begging life to be easier and start becoming stronger within it. Each moment becomes simpler. Either something is within your control, or it is not. If it is, act with purpose. If it is not, release it without resentment. Your mind is the place where you live at all times. You can change cities, jobs, relationships, and routines, but you cannot escape your thoughts. If your mind is chaotic, life feels chaotic. If your mind is calm, even difficult moments feel manageable. Many people suffer not because life is cruel, but because their inner space is neglected and overcrowded. Every day, thoughts enter your mind without permission. Some are useful. Many are not. Worry, doubt, anger, jealousy, regret, and fear show up quietly and settle in. If left unchecked, they take control. The mind does not question what it is fed. It accepts repetition as truth. This is why guarding your thoughts is not optional. It is survival. Imagine your mind as a room. If you never clean it, dust builds up, trash piles in corners, and the air becomes heavy. you would not feel comfortable there. Yet people allow their minds to fill with mental noise and expect peace. News, social media, complaints, gossip, and constant comparison all leave residue. Over time, this residue shapes how you see the world. Not every thought deserves attention. Just because a thought appears does not mean it is true or useful. The discipline is learning to observe without agreeing. When a negative thought arises, instead of believing it, pause. Ask whether it helps you act better, think clearer, or live with strength. If it does not, it has no value. Anger is one of the most destructive intruders. It convinces you that reaction is necessary and immediate. It narrows vision and pushes reason aside. Once anger enters and stays, it stains judgment. Guarding your mind means catching anger early before it settles. Silence, distance, and patience act like open windows, letting the heat escape. Fear is another common invader. It often disguises itself as caution, but its true goal is avoidance. Fear speaks in future scenarios that may never happen. If entertained long enough, it builds walls inside the mind. A guarded mind acknowledges risk without letting imagination run wild. It stays present and grounded. What you repeatedly think becomes familiar. Familiar thoughts become comfortable, even if they are harmful. This is why some people stay trapped in negative cycles for years. They do not realize they are feeding the same thoughts daily. Guarding the mind requires awareness of patterns. You notice what returns often and question whether it deserves a place. Silence is a powerful tool. Constant noise weakens attention. A guarded mind values moments without input. Walking without headphones, sitting without distraction, breathing without rushing allows the mind to reset. In silence, thoughts reveal their true nature. Some fade. Others lose power. Your environment matters. What you watch, listen to, and discuss shapes your inner world. You cannot consume chaos and expect clarity. Choosing what enters your mind is an act of discipline. This does not mean avoiding reality, but it means limiting unnecessary negativity. Strength grows in controlled exposure, not constant bombardment. Guarding the mind also means choosing perspective. Two people can face the same event and experience it differently. The difference lies in interpretation. One sees insult, the other sees noise. One sees failure, the other sees feedback. Perspective acts like a filter, deciding what affects you and what passes through. Over time, this practice creates inner order. Thoughts become fewer but clearer. Emotions become signals instead of masters. You stop reacting automatically and start responding intentionally. The mind becomes a place of strategy rather than chaos. This is not about eliminating thoughts. It is about leadership. A guarded mind does not allow every impulse to take command. It chooses which thoughts are allowed to stay, which are questioned, and which are dismissed. This daily discipline shapes character, strengthens focus, and creates emotional stability in a world that constantly tries to disturb it. Pain is a natural part of being alive. Every person experiences it, in different forms: physical discomfort, emotional loss, disappointment, rejection, and failure. Yet most suffering does not come from pain itself. It comes from the fear of pain. The mind imagines pain as something unbearable, something that will break you, something that must be avoided at all costs. This belief gives pain power before it even arrives. When pain appears, the first instinct is to resist it. The body tightens, the mind panics. Thoughts rush in, predicting worse outcomes. This reaction multiplies the experience. What could have been a moment becomes a long-lasting one. Facing pain without fear means meeting it with awareness instead of resistance. Pain is a signal, not a sentence. It tells you that something has changed, that effort is required, or that growth is taking place. When you remove fear, pain becomes information. It shows you limits, teaches endurance, and builds understanding. Fear turns pain into an enemy. Calm turns it into a teacher. Avoidance weakens the mind. When you constantly escape discomfort, you train yourself to be fragile. The mind learns that discomfort equals danger. Over time, even small challenges feel overwhelming. Facing pain directly reverses this process. Each time you endure discomfort without panic, confidence grows quietly. This does not mean seeking pain or glorifying suffering. It means accepting pain when it arrives and not adding unnecessary layers to it. You acknowledge the sensation or emotion without labeling it as unbearable. You breathe, observe, and allow it to pass through without clinging or fleeing. Much of pain is temporary, but fear convinces you it is permanent. Fear stretches moments into endless struggles. By staying present, you reduce this distortion. You focus on what is happening now, not what might happen next. Presence shortens pain. Emotional pain follows the same pattern. Loss, betrayal, and disappointment hurt deeply. Trying to suppress these feelings often makes them stronger. Allowing yourself to feel without judgment creates movement. Emotions that are felt honestly do not linger as long as those that are denied. Facing pain also builds trust in yourself. Each time you endure something difficult, you prove your resilience. This creates inner security. You stop doubting your ability to handle hardship. Fear loses its grip when experience shows it has exaggerated the threat. Pain often arrives with meaning attached. The mind says, "This should not be happening," or "This is unfair." These thoughts intensify suffering. Removing the story reduces the weight. Pain without judgment is lighter than pain with resistance. Physical discomfort teaches this clearly. When the body is tired or strained, fighting the sensation creates tension. Relaxing into controlled breathing and awareness reduces intensity. The same principle applies to emotional pain. Relaxing the mind softens the experience. Facing pain without fear also sharpens character. It develops patience, humility, and compassion. You become less reactive to minor discomforts because you have faced greater ones. This stability allows you to support others without being overwhelmed. Life does not offer guarantees of comfort. It offers challenges and uncertainty. Fear tries to protect you by limiting action, but it often limits life instead. Courage is not the absence of pain. It is the willingness to move forward despite it. When you stop fearing pain, you stop negotiating with life. You no longer demand ease before effort or certainty before action. You act based on values rather than comfort. This alignment brings strength. Pain passes more quickly when it is not resisted. The body and mind are designed to recover. Fear interrupts this natural process. Calm allows it to work. Facing pain without fear does not make you cold or detached. It makes you grounded. You feel deeply without being controlled. You experience hardship without losing balance. Over time, pain loses its ability to surprise or dominate. It becomes another part of the human experience, met with steadiness rather than dread. The need for approval quietly controls many lives. People change their words, soften their beliefs, hide their strengths, and silence their instincts to avoid disapproval. This habit begins early and grows unnoticed. Over time, it shapes decisions, relationships, and self-image. When approval becomes the measure of worth, freedom disappears. Seeking approval hands power to others. When your sense of value depends on external praise, you become reactive. Compliments lift you briefly, criticism crushes you deeply. This creates emotional instability. You are no longer guided by principles but by reactions. Inner peace cannot exist under constant evaluation. Other people's opinions are unstable. They change with mood, context, and self-interest. Building your identity on them is like building on sand. One moment you are admired, the next you are ignored. If your confidence rises and falls with this cycle, you never stand firmly anywhere. Approval seeking encourages dishonesty. You say what is safe, not what is true. You choose what is popular, not what is right. Over time, this creates inner conflict. The mind knows when it has betrayed itself. This conflict shows up as anxiety, resentment, and exhaustion. When you stop needing approval, clarity appears. Decisions become simpler. You ask whether an action aligns with your values, not whether it will be praised. This shift removes mental noise. You no longer rehearse conversations in your head or imagine how others might react. Energy once spent on image management returns to purposeful action. Letting go of approval does not mean rejecting feedback. It means choosing discernment. Useful feedback helps growth. Noise does not. The difference lies in intent and substance. Learning to separate constructive input from empty judgment protects your focus. Fear of disapproval often hides fear of rejection. Humans are social by nature, and exclusion feels threatening. But not all rejection is loss. Some rejection is direction. It filters relationships, environments, and paths that do not align with who you are becoming. Trying to please everyone ensures you belong nowhere fully. Strength grows when you accept that not everyone will like you. This acceptance removes pressure. You stop performing and start living. Authenticity attracts the right people and repels the rest. This natural separation creates deeper, more honest connections. Approval addiction also limits growth. Growth often looks uncomfortable. Change challenges expectations. If you fear criticism, you avoid necessary risks. By releasing approval, you allow yourself to evolve without permission. Your worth is not voted on by others. It is demonstrated through actions, consistency, and integrity. Quiet discipline builds confidence that no opinion can remove. When you respect yourself, external approval becomes optional, not necessary. There will be moments when standing by your values brings loneliness. This is not failure. This is alignment. Solitude in integrity is stronger than companionship built on compromise. Over time, self-trust replaces the need for reassurance. Approval seeking keeps the mind outward focused. You monitor reactions instead of intentions. This constant scanning creates tension. Turning inward restores calm. You begin to act with purpose rather than anxiety. Letting go of approval also strengthens emotional resilience. Criticism loses its sting when it does not define you. Praise loses its hold when it does not inflate you. Balance replaces extremes. This practice requires honesty. You must notice when decisions are shaped by fear of judgment. You must choose courage repeatedly. Each time you act without seeking approval, self-respect grows. This self-respect becomes a stable foundation. When approval no longer controls you, time slows, urgency fades. You are no longer rushing to prove yourself. You move deliberately, guided by values rather than validation. This steadiness changes how you speak, work, and relate to others. Freedom begins when you stop asking for permission to be yourself. The mind becomes quieter, actions become stronger. Life becomes simpler when you no longer need applause to stand tall. Most people live as if time is endless. They delay important conversations, postpone meaningful work, and waste energy on trivial conflicts. This illusion creates carelessness. Remembering that life is temporary cuts through this fog. It sharpens awareness and brings urgency to what truly matters. Impermanence is not a threat. It is a lens. When you understand that everything changes and nothing lasts forever, attachment loosens. You stop clinging to outcomes, people, and moments as if they must remain fixed. This acceptance reduces fear and disappointment. Every day is a limited resource. Once it passes, it cannot be recovered. Treating time as abundant leads to waste. Treating it as finite encourages intention. Small choices gain weight. How you speak, work, and rest becomes more deliberate. Conflict looks different through this perspective. Arguments lose intensity when you remember how brief life is. Pride feels less important. Forgiveness becomes easier. You ask whether holding on to anger is worth the limited time you have. Awareness of mortality also reduces anxiety about the future. When you accept that uncertainty is unavoidable and time is limited, you stop demanding guarantees. You focus on living well now rather than waiting for perfect conditions. This mindset strengthens gratitude. Ordinary moments gain value because they are temporary. Simple experiences feel richer when you know they will not last forever. You notice more. You appreciate more. Remembering life's temporary nature also encourages courage. Fear of failure weakens when you understand that avoiding action wastes time. Regret grows heavier than mistakes. Acting despite fear becomes easier when you see inaction as a greater loss. This perspective brings humility. You are part of a larger flow, not the center of it. This reduces ego-driven stress. You stop taking minor setbacks as personal attacks. Life becomes less about control and more about participation. Loss is inevitable. Everyone will experience it. Remembering impermanence does not remove grief, but it softens resistance. You allow sadness without surprise. You understand that attachment includes the risk of loss. This awareness prepares the mind without hardening the heart. Daily annoyances shrink under this lens. Delays, inconveniences, and minor frustrations lose their grip. They are temporary, just like everything else. You stop feeding them with attention. This awareness also encourages responsibility. Knowing that time is limited pushes you to act with integrity. You are less willing to waste energy on dishonesty or meaningless pursuits. Actions align more closely with values. Remembering that life is temporary does not mean rushing. It means being present. It means choosing depth over speed. It encourages quality over quantity in relationships and work. This perspective clarifies priorities. You spend less time proving yourself and more time building what matters. You choose long-term character over short-term pleasure. It also reduces fear of judgment. Opinions fade, trends disappear, only actions and impact remain. When you understand this, external noise loses influence. Even suffering changes shape under this awareness. Hardship becomes part of a brief journey rather than an endless burden. This does not erase pain, but it gives it context. Living with impermanence in mind encourages balance. You work with focus, rest without guilt, and connect without distraction. You understand that moments are passing whether you notice them or not. This mindset creates urgency without panic. You move with purpose rather than pressure. Each day becomes an opportunity rather than an obligation. When you remember that life is temporary, you stop waiting to live. You stop postponing courage, honesty, and growth. The present moment becomes enough, because it is all you truly have. Most problems grow larger not because of what happens, but because of how people react. Reaction is fast, emotional, and automatic. It comes from habit, impulse, and wounded pride. Response is different. Response is slow, thoughtful, and chosen. Learning to respond instead of react changes the quality of every situation. When something unexpected happens, the body reacts before the mind thinks. Heart rate increases. Muscles tense. Words rush forward. This is natural but not always useful. If you act in this state, you surrender control. The moment controls you instead of the other way around. Reaction often leads to regret. Harsh words spoken in anger cannot be taken back. Decisions made in fear close doors unnecessarily. Emotional reactions feel justified in the moment, but their consequences last longer than the feeling itself. Responding requires a pause. That pause creates space between stimulus and action. In that space, choice exists. Even a brief moment of silence can prevent damage. Silence is not weakness, it is restraint. Restraint is strength. Most conflicts escalate because both sides react. One reaction triggers another. Pride fuels the exchange. Responding breaks this chain. When one person stays calm, the situation loses momentum. Calm is contagious just as chaos is. Responding does not mean suppressing emotion. It means acknowledging emotion without letting it lead. You notice anger without becoming it. You feel frustration without acting from it. This awareness weakens emotional control over behavior. Many people believe reacting shows strength. They confuse loudness with power. True strength is staying composed when provoked. Anyone can lose control. Few can maintain it. When criticized, reaction defends the ego. Response listens for truth. Even unfair criticism may contain useful information. Responding allows you to extract value without absorbing insult. When insulted, reaction seeks revenge. Response recognizes that another person's words reveal their state, not your worth. You do not need to carry someone else's instability. Responding also improves decision-making. Emotional reactions narrow focus. They push the mind into extremes. Calm responses widen perspective. You see options instead of threats. This practice requires awareness of internal signals. Tightness in the chest, shallow breathing, racing thoughts are signs that reaction is approaching. These signals are cues to pause. A deep breath resets the nervous system enough to regain control. Responding builds trust. People feel safe around those who do not explode under pressure. Leaders, partners, and friends who respond calmly create stability. Stability attracts respect. This discipline takes practice. At first, you may notice reactions only after they happen. Over time, awareness moves earlier. Eventually, you catch the impulse before it becomes action. Responding also protects energy. Reacting drains mental and emotional resources. It keeps the mind trapped in replay and justification. Responding ends the event cleanly, allowing attention to return to what matters. In difficult moments, responding aligns behavior with values. You act according to principles rather than impulses. This builds self-respect. Self-respect grows when actions match beliefs. Not every situation requires a response. Sometimes the strongest response is no response. Ignoring provocation denies it power. Attention fuels conflict. Withholding it starves unnecessary drama. Responding creates consistency. You become predictable in the best way. Others know you will act with fairness and control. This reputation reduces future conflict. This approach does not remove emotion from life. It places emotion in its proper role. Emotion informs, reason decides, action follows intention. Each time you choose response over reaction, you strengthen the mind. You train patience, clarity, and control. Over time, this becomes your natural state. Pressure no longer pushes you off balance. You remain steady regardless of circumstance. Motivation is unreliable. It comes and goes like the weather. Some days it is high, and everything seems possible. Other days it disappears, leaving you exhausted, distracted, and unwilling. If you depend on motivation, you are at the mercy of forces you cannot control. Discipline, however, is consistent. Discipline does not wait for emotion. It acts regardless of how you feel. This is why discipline is more powerful than motivation in shaping a meaningful life. Discipline is a practice, not a feeling. It shows up in small, repeated actions that accumulate over time. Waking up early, completing tasks even when you do not feel like it, exercising when your body protests, studying when you would rather rest. These are acts of discipline. Each one strengthens the mind and builds self-trust. Motivation might spark a single effort, but discipline sustains progress. Habits are the framework of discipline. People often fail because they rely on willpower alone. Willpower is limited and depletes under stress. Habits, once established, act automatically. Discipline is about designing life so that positive habits require less mental energy and negative habits are harder to perform. This makes action consistent, even when motivation is absent. Discipline creates freedom. This may sound counterintuitive, but it is true. When you depend on fleeting motivation, you are a slave to moods. Discipline liberates you from mood swings. You act because it is necessary, not because it is convenient. This reliability builds confidence and reduces internal conflict. Most people underestimate the power of daily repetition. Progress is often invisible at first, which tempts them to quit. Discipline requires trust in the long-term effect of small actions. A single workout does not transform the body, but repeated effort over months does. A single study session does not create mastery, but consistency does. Discipline is patience in action. Discipline also strengthens character. Each time you act despite discomfort, you prove something to yourself. You demonstrate that you can endure difficulty without collapsing. This proof becomes internalized. Over time, the mind and body recognize that challenges are not threats, but opportunities to act with control. Motivation often depends on external factors, praise, excitement, or visible progress. Discipline depends on internal commitment. It does not wait for the world to inspire you. It moves because you have chosen a standard of action. This internal anchor provides stability in the face of chaos. Discipline reduces regret. Many people fail not because they lack ability, but because they wait for the right moment or the right feeling. That moment may never come. Discipline ensures that you take action consistently, so fewer opportunities are wasted and fewer promises to yourself are broken. Discipline is also a form of preparation. Life is unpredictable. Challenges arrive unannounced. If your strength depends on motivation, you may crumble when tested. Discipline prepares the mind and body to respond effectively at all times. It builds resilience, endurance, and competence, making hardship manageable rather than overwhelming. The benefits of discipline extend beyond tasks and goals. It improves emotional control. When you repeatedly act according to principle rather than impulse, you train the mind to prioritize long-term outcomes over short-term comfort. This creates mental stability that supports every area of life. Discipline is not punishment, it is an investment. Each act builds the ability to live intentionally. It is the difference between drifting and steering. Motivation is a spark. Discipline is the engine that keeps you moving when sparks fade. Self-respect grows from repeated disciplined action. Motivation may lift the spirit briefly, but it cannot create confidence. Confidence comes from evidence, the record of actions taken even when effort is difficult. Discipline generates that evidence daily. In moments of discomfort, discipline is the choice to act rather than retreat. It is the recognition that doing what is necessary matters more than doing what feels easy. Over time, repeated discipline shapes identity. You become the kind of person who can handle challenges, endure hardship, and consistently move toward your goals. Life is full of challenges, but much of the suffering we experience comes not from external events, but from the stories we tell ourselves about them. People encounter hardships every day, small disappointments, misunderstandings, unexpected setbacks, and instead of meeting them calmly, they pile extra suffering on top. Complaints, overthinking, self-pity, and imagined scenarios multiply the original difficulty. This additional suffering is optional, yet most people choose it without realizing. Learning to stop adding suffering to suffering is one of the most powerful skills a person can develop. When a problem arises, the mind instinctively reacts. It amplifies the situation, imagining worst-case scenarios, replaying past failures, and predicting negative outcomes. This mental rehearsal often becomes more painful than the event itself. For example, a minor criticism can trigger hours of anxiety because the mind tells stories of rejection, incompetence, or failure. By observing these thoughts without attaching to them, you reduce unnecessary suffering. Acceptance is the first step. Acceptance does not mean resignation or indifference. It means acknowledging reality as it is, without adding judgment or complaint. When a mistake occurs, recognize it factually. It happened, and it cannot be undone. When someone behaves poorly, recognize their actions as theirs, not as a reflection of your worth. By removing judgment, the mind stops inflating problems and begins to see them clearly. Another source of extra suffering is attachment to how things should be. Expectations create tension. Life rarely conforms to our ideals, and when it doesn't, resistance creates stress. Letting go of rigid expectations allows you to meet life on its own terms. A problem becomes simply what it is, a situation to navigate, not a personal insult or a catastrophe. Emotional regulation plays a central role in this process. Strong reactions, anger, frustration, fear, fuel unnecessary suffering. Each time you add a story or let emotion dictate action, you intensify the original problem. Observing emotions without being controlled by them creates space. In that space, you can act rationally, make better decisions, and maintain peace of mind. Self-pity is another common contributor. When you believe life is unfair or dwell on what you lack, you create an emotional storm. This storm does not change reality but makes the experience heavier. By taking responsibility for your reactions, even in difficult situations, you regain power. Life may be challenging, but your response is entirely yours. Practicing mindfulness strengthens the ability to avoid adding suffering. When you stay present, you see the problem clearly, without the lens of fear or regret. Awareness of the moment prevents the mind from projecting past mistakes or future worries onto current events. Each moment is addressed on its own terms, which reduces the mental weight unnecessarily carried. Perspective is equally important. Most difficulties are temporary and small in the grand scheme of life. Recognizing this diminishes the intensity of suffering. When faced with setbacks, consider their scale relative to your life as a whole. This does not trivialize problems. It allows a balanced view that prevents emotional escalation. Preparation and proactive thinking also help. Anticipating challenges with a calm, rational approach reduces panic. Mental rehearsal of potential difficulties equips you to respond effectively rather than emotionally. This strategy prevents unnecessary suffering, because when the challenge arrives, you are ready and composed. Physical well-being affects mental resilience. Fatigue, hunger, or illness lowers tolerance for discomfort, making minor issues feel catastrophic. Taking care of the body, sleep, nutrition, exercise, supports the mind, reducing the tendency to amplify pain or stress unnecessarily. Finally, gratitude shifts focus away from the problem. When you actively notice what is good or stable in life, negative experiences lose their grip. Gratitude does not erase difficulty, but it balances perspective, preventing the mind from dwelling exclusively on suffering. Over time, consistently applying these practices creates mental resilience. Challenges still arise, but the mind becomes a tool rather than a source of extra pain. Situations are met as they are, not as imagined extensions of fear or desire. The habit of stopping added suffering transforms how life feels and how problems are experienced.